Hello, Eastside Youth. This is your midweek check-in and encouragement. Hope you guys are doing well. Um, yeah, hope you guys are staying safe and hydrated. It's been actually kind of a cool summer so far, temperature-wise. We were looking at doing some stuff in the backyard, the family, and it's like cloudy and overcast and almost middle of July. So here we are. But yeah, hope you guys are well. Um, and sorry again that this is a day late than it normally is. We'll probably be for Thursdays for a bit now, just because I'm back mentoring on Wednesdays. And yeah, so if you don't see something by Thursday now, then you can start shouting out to me. But yeah, this is your midweek check-in. We're going to be continuing in Galatians. We'll be in Galatians chapter 2. We're going to do just a handful of verses this week. It's actually quite a bit shorter. We're going to be doing verses 11 through 14. And one of the things that I want to remind you before we get into this um, is as we read this, there's going to be two kind of notions in Christianity that we're going to be kind of balancing, and we're going to be using this section as a good kind of guide for how to approach those things. So the first is this idea that we are not supposed to judge people, that we don't know their walk with God, we don't know their salvation, and all of that is true. And ultimately, it is not our place to judge. And I would say that in saying that I think oftentimes that means that we do not get to say that this person is or is not a Christian just based on looking at their lives. That is not for us to say. However, there is plenty of places in the Bible that speak about fruit, and that speak about bearing fruit, and that the fruit tells you about the root. So if you look at a person's life and they're pursuing and they are in favor of and they are doing the things that God would have them to be doing. They seem to care about what the Bible says about their life. They seem to care about the things of Christ and the power that Christ's death and resurrection have. That would be fruit that would be evidence toward a person then judging, if you will, or being able to say, I believe that person is a Christian. Whereas if a person says, yeah, I believe in Jesus, and then they turn around and are doing things that are the exact opposite of what we would expect a Christian to be doing, um, it would be safe for a person to say, I don't know if that person is a Christian. That is just some common sense things that I think tools that we can use when we start talking about it's not our place to judge. Because, as we're going to see this week with Paul, sometimes as believers, we do need to have a little bit of judgment for people in our lives, especially those who are teaching, and especially if people are teaching something that is not the gospel. And that second piece of well, it's not our place. Uh, God has entrusted the church to do his work on this earth at this time for a certain period of time. And so in some cases it is appropriate to judge, and I think that idea of judging often comes with this final like gavel smash, you're out, you're in, and that is not the idea of what it is. Rather, it's this idea of discerning, and this idea of judging is more of like weighing it, to be the judge between two, and it in that sense, it's more like we're not slamming the gavel down and saying you have received your sentence. Rather, when we enter into a time where we might have to make a judgment on either a person's conduct or their behavior as it relates to their walk with Christ. And I would also argue that to just ignore those things often is unloving, especially if we know that person has evidenced something contrary to that behavior before. To then just let them continue in it would be not kind and not caring. But also, this idea of judgment is not just like smash the gavel, send them away, be gone. It is always with the hope of restoration, and it's always with the hope that they can be brought back into the unity that the gospel provides. So, with that said, I know that's like a big uh, hedge or um, disclaimer up front. Galatians 2, verse 11 says, so this is Paul speaking. He says, but when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he was eating with the Gentiles. But when they came, he drew back and separated himself, fearing the circumcision party. And the rest of the Jews acted hypocritically along with him, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that their conduct was not in step with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas before all of them, if you, though you're a Jew, live like you're a Gentile, how can you force these Gentiles to live like Jews? All right, so this is a really short section, and what's going on is when Paul came to Antioch, Peter was there. Cephas is Peter. Yeah, another name. But Peter had come to Antioch originally, and when he had came there, he was okay with eating with the Gentiles and doing the things that the Gentiles do. But then when a group of Jewish believers, people who were of Jewish culturally and then had accepted Christ, when they came to Antioch, Peter drew away from them. He quit hanging out with the Gentile believers, um, and he separated himself. And then on top of that, like it wasn't just like, "Well, we're done hanging out," but the people that Peter then went to hang out with, this they call them the circumcision party, this Jewish Christians, they began to look at the Gentile Christians in a lesser light. And so, because of Peter's influence in the church, because he had a voice in the church, he was a big leader. He walked around with Jesus. He's one of the dudes. Because he acted in this way, he actually led a group of younger Jewish Christians astray in not welcoming these Gentile believers. So when Paul comes to town, he says, "No, I put Peter on blast," and the language is not like, I brought him aside and I just talked to him one on one, and I tried to make sure that his no, he does it in front of everybody. He calls Peter out to his face. He says, "You're a hypocrite, and you need to stop." And we might read that, and I think rightfully so. Like that is not the most loving approach, and it probably, I don't know, maybe would have been better received if he had um, gone about a different way. However, Paul's attitude, the amount of like fire and almost anger that we see in Paul here, it's rightfully placed because Peter is like doing stuff that could lead people astray, and it already maybe has caused a rift in this church. And so again, we go back to the idea of judging. Paul's definitely making a judgment here. His judgment is, Peter, you are not living and you are not promoting something that is actually the gospel here, and you know it. You need to stop it. Because at the end of this, he says, Peter, how are you, who is a Jew by culture, you grew up Jewish, who is cool to live like a Gentile, why are you asking these Gentile people to act Jewish? In other words, why are you saying that they need to be circumcised in order to be saved? You know that's not the gospel. That's what Paul is saying to Peter here. He calls him out in front of all these people. And it's kind of awkward because you got like the two big names of the early church. You got Peter on one hand and Paul on the other. And remember, Paul used to like kill Christians, and now you have this guy calling out like Peter, the rock, on it. And he's like, "No, this is not right, and you know it, and you need to stop." And so I think it's good to remember that yes, we should always try to show respect and be loving and be kind. And we always should try to restore. Note that Paul is not trying to get rid of Peter. He's trying to restore Peter and restore this situation. That's always, always, always the goal. However, sometimes it is okay to take an extreme approach, and not in a violent way, not in like a harmful way, but in a way that truly holds the power of the gospel high, that says, no, I believe this thing, so much so that it makes me angry when somebody um, is teaching something that is not true about it. Uh, and I think if we're ever in a spot where we're like, man, I heard something, I think it's always good to be slow and to pray and go, is this real? Is this what this person's saying? God, help me to respond uh, accordingly. And if that tension is still there, take it to someone. Paul definitely had people that he was talking to, and so keep those things in mind. That while yes, we have the Holy Spirit who can guide us and can lead us into saying those things and speaking out in these good ways, we do also still have sin. So did Paul. That can maybe be a bit of pride coming out, and so we got to make sure that we check those things too. But the key thing here is discernment, and oftentimes when we have discerned something, it is okay to challenge it, um, in the hopes and in the prayer that restoration can happen. Um, so that is Galatians 2:11 to 14. We'll continue this next week. We're excited. This Sunday, don't forget, is our bike night. Bring a bike, bring a helmet, bring some, if you want extra spending money for a snack, feel free. But we'll have regular youth group lesson. We'll be continuing in Deuteronomy together. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to that. And then it looks like at the end of the month, um, I think right now we're saying July 26th, I believe is the date, but that is the day that we're looking at for Bethany's um, kind of goodbye get together that has now been like on round 3. So hopefully we can get that going this time. But yeah, hope you guys can enjoy your summer in the way that you're able to right now. I know stuff's a little different, but if anything, just remember, like, be safe in order to keep stuff open at this point. You know what I mean? Like, uh, yeah, stay safe to stay open. I've heard that a couple times, and I kind of like it. Anyway, love you guys, and we will see you soon. Take care.